Ariel. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I was reading your bio ahead of time, and you're a neuroscientist and a psychotherapist with an entrepreneurial desire. That's a very unique combination of skill sets and just knowledge resource. So how did you come about each one of those pathways? Like what's kind of set you on this entrepreneurial journey, and how did you end up in really high-end knowledge areas that you have so much experience in?
So my parents were both entrepreneurs. My mother is an artist, and for anyone looking at the live stream, this is her painting behind me. She would make these beautiful large-scale oil on canvases, and from there, I kind of learned that she would take a blank canvas, have her imagination craft whatever was in there and put it out in real life. So something white would become colorful and full of life and full of value. So that entrepreneurial spirit was really imbued in me from a young age, that you could make whatever you wanted. My dad was also an entrepreneur. My grandparents came over after the Holocaust with nothing and moved into a house and renovated it, moved into another house and renovated it, on and on and on and on and on. And so my dad was an entrepreneur in real estate. And so the idea of working for someone else was always crazy to me. I always assumed whatever it was, I was going to have my own business. And that whatever I did, it would hopefully have to make a positive impact in the world. So with that entrepreneurial spirit, I actually tried a number of businesses along the way. I had a clothing design company. I had a small store. I had a small offshoot of a real estate business that I experimented with. When I was 5, I had a lemonade stand. And then at the same time, I was also very curious about the world and how it worked in science. So I went to school for neuroscience. And when I graduated, trained as a psychotherapist and then opened a private practice, all the while trying to figure out how I would marry these worlds of business and having your own business with my curiosity and understanding about the brain and people and how they work. And I began working in the lab of Dr. Steve Mann. He was the inventor of the wearable computer, and he had an early brain-computer interface system. So it was an EEG electrode that you would put on your head, and by connecting to it, you were able to change music with your mind. I'm going to repeat that for the... So by putting the single electrode on the back of your head and focusing or relaxing, you were actually able to change the sound of the music that you were hearing in the room. So we had the first experience of a brain-computer interface where you could literally interact with your mind with the world around you. And I stood back and said, this is unbelievable, and I think this could be the business. And I then got together with my co-founders, Chris Ameny and Trevor Coleman, and we spent the next 5 or 6 years trying to figure out exactly what the business was. And what we recognized was with this technology, we could make people's internal process, specifically around focus and relaxation, tangible. So you could know when you're focusing and know when you're relaxed and get audio feedback. Hear your focus and your relaxation. And we recognized the best way we could apply that was to help people meditate. Because with my background in neuroscience and psychotherapy, it was very obvious to me that meditation was an incredibly powerful tool to change and improve the brain. I was using it as a psychotherapist with my patients. As a neuroscientist, I knew the research behind it, but it was something that I was struggling with doing myself and couldn't get right, and that my patients were having a hard time doing. And we recognized that if we could make this invisible, intangible, weird process of meditation practical and tangible, we could get more people doing it and build a business that would really positively impact the world.
Wow. So, gosh, there's so much in there to think about and unpack. So first of all, let me back all the way up to the beginning, because I thought this was a really interesting thing when you were talking about your mom and being an artist and being an entrepreneur. I think so many times people, and maybe I'm just assuming this, which is always dangerous, but they put like art in one category and business in another. But like I always, as a creative, because I come from I run a design agency, is that I always feel like business is art. And there's so much, in common between those two things. And I'm curious, like from your perspective, some people say that people are born entrepreneurs. They like have this thing inside them that just has to come out. Others say that, it's the environment that they're in, which clearly you were in an environment with other entrepreneurs. And some people say it's a mix. It's like the nature versus nurture question, right? So what do you think? Do you think people are born with a desire to be an entrepreneur? Do you think it's their environment, or do you think it's a mix?
So I would definitely feel like it's a mix, because anything in your life is a mix. Nothing is nature or nurture. Certainly for me, I had the personality traits of, tenacity, deep belief in myself, desire to change things, and passion, ability to work hard, long hours. And then I also had the environment, which completely sealed the deal for me. It would seem weird to work for someone else, as I mentioned. In terms of the relationship between art and business, entrepreneurship, so business, the execution of business, the tracking of financials and the accounting and all of those details, that it has its own creativity, but it has to follow a very, very strict process. Entrepreneurship is extraordinarily creative. As an entrepreneur, you are an artist. You are, looking at a blank canvas. It's things that do not yet exist, and you're putting together pieces in novel ways to create something that wasn't there before. And then you have to do it with the passion and the charisma and the flair to engage other people, to make it compelling and engaging, to create experiences that other people want to participate in them, to make your, advertising visually and emotionally and psychologically engaging. All of these are extraordinary arts.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think that when I think about business, especially from a leadership structure, we often talk about this idea of a visionary and an integrator. The visionary is kind of the big idea person. They're the dreamer. They're the ones who are coming up with all the grand plans for the future, sometimes too many of them. And the integrator is the one who goes, hold on, how are we going to make this profitable? How does this look on a P&L? What's the internal structures and process and systems? And me being the visionary type is like, I don't really know. You sort that out. I'm going to keep coming up with ideas. So where would you put yourself on that scale? Are you more the artist, entrepreneur, visionary, or are you more the integrator? It sounds like you're probably more the...
I am firmly the entrepreneur, artist, visionary. And I've been very lucky to have good integrators. So initially in our team of me, Chris, and Trevor was the integrator. We would always joke that I was the gas pedal. I'm like, we got to go there. I see this thing. We can do it. Chris, who became the CTO, was the engine. He was the thing that would make it happen. And then Trevor was the brake. He was the one that say, hold on, is this legal? Do we have a contract for that? Can we really do that? How are we going to do that? He was a process-oriented one. And as the business grew, I was originally the CEO for 7 years, and I brought on an amazing COO, Derek Luke, who was an incredibly seasoned business executive. And he was really able to take what was our business vision and transform it into something with an extraordinary P&L, that's profitable, with very great manufacturing and logistic lines, and really keep all of the trains running on time. And we couldn't have done it without that function, without Derek.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, developing that right team over time is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, because they start with this idea and maybe it's them or maybe them one other person, but kind of getting those right people around them can be a real struggle. So how did you, two things. One, I want to ask this question: how did you find those people? How did you develop that team? And two, I want to jump really quickly into like the practical application and talk about meditation, because I think a lot of people are confused by it. They don't really know what it is. They don't really know how to apply it. And then let's talk about it as it relates to Muse. So first question, how did you develop that leadership? How did you find those people to go, hey, you're a good fit here. You can help essentially solve my weaknesses in this puzzle of business growth?
And I had a lot of weaknesses in the puzzle of business growth. I mean, I put myself in a field where I really didn't know much. I was not a technologist or a coder. I had I had my family's business background, but it didn't have a formal business training or training in how to raise millions of dollars. There was a lot of pieces. I've never manufactured anything in China. There were a lot of pieces to this very difficult puzzle that I didn't have. Mm-hmm. And it was by holding the vision of what was possible and then finding individuals who could fulfill those roles. Initially, it was the people in our immediate environment, the people that we went to school with, the friends, the network that we had. Over time, as we became more popular, people would come towards us. So we had the opportunity to, select talent more effectively. We happened to be in Toronto, which is, a hotbed for technology and engineering and has very strong design strength. We managed to find contractors. Initially, people would work as contractors. And then once we had the money, they could come on full time. We had a massive core of interns to get us started because we didn't have the money. So we really just relied on whoever we could that was currently in university that we could bring on for an internship relationship to help move the small pieces forward as we got the train running. And so it was through being clear about what we were building and really passionate, having a lot of visibility and having a lot of PR that attracted people to us. And then ultimately using recruiters, that's how I found Derek, in select positions where it really needed to be perfect, where we really needed to get it right. And then we also had a network of advisors, and those network of advisors, some of them, would sometimes work for us on a contract basis or help us find the right person through their network.
That's incredible. I mean, it's a real, as much as you said, you had a lot of weaknesses in the process. I think one of your strengths, at least it sounds like without really knowing you, is that ability to step back and go, you know what, I'm not great at this. I'm going to bring in this recruiter to go solve this problem for me. And I think that's where great success often comes in business is being smart enough to realize, hey, these are things I'm really good at. I should do these things. These are things I'm not really good at. I should find people to do those things. And that looks different in different seasons of business. Like you said, I mean, in the early days, you might have to have a lot of interns to help with certain things. And over time, you can bring in, more established employee type roles or team members based on where you're at in business.
Yeah. And I was the CEO for 7 years and, had to be. I was the one who was driving it forward and building the relationships and networking. And when it got to a certain point, I was not the right person to take it forward. I was not the right, extremely seasoned business executive who understood all of the nitty gritty. And I moved to where my strengths were. And didn't realize what a valuable shift that was going to be for everyone at the time. So, know what your weaknesses are. Don't be afraid to bring on the right person. Don't be afraid to start or try something. So one of the important lessons from my journey is that I didn't know how to do 99% of the business when I started it. But I was able to still move forward, bring on the talent that was required, learn the skills that I was missing, and ultimately have an incredibly complex and thriving business. So often we feel like, oh, but I'll never figure out how to do that. You will figure it out, or you will find the person who knows how to do it. So don't let lack of knowledge hold you back.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Ultimately, I raised $18 million for the business, having prior to this business never raised a penny in my life and not having an MBA. And so it's amazing what you can discover you're capable of when you put yourself in the right position.
Well, and it's to give up the idea of I'm not going to be the CEO anymore. That's not the title I'm going to hold. That would be a big deal for a lot of business leaders. And I think that it even shows more how you've kind of gone, hey, where should I be in this picture? Maybe that's not the right role for me. That's really, really inspiring, I would say, and encouraging even for me.
Thank you. And it was a big deal for me too. It was really hard, but ultimately worked out most effectively for everyone.
Let's get real practical here because I don't want to waste the extreme experience and knowledge and insight that you have. I don't know that much about meditation. I'm a person of faith, so prayer is probably the closest thing I have to meditation. But I feel like it's coming up more and more. I think it's becoming a bigger deal. And I think right now, especially in the season of so much fear and uncertainty in the world, there's a really strong place for this. So I'd love for you to kind of bring this down for people that maybe aren't that familiar with meditation. And then let's talk about how Muse helps improve that process. So talk a little bit about meditation as a whole, the value of it, and how people can kind of step into that journey if it's not something that they're comfortable with or know much about yet.
Sure. So meditation is simply a practice or a training that leads to healthy and positive mind states. Meditation is not a weird or woo-woo thing. It is just a practice that you do regularly, just like going to the gym. And when you do it, it makes your brain and your mind stronger and clearer. So you've probably heard of lots of different forms of meditation. There's Zen meditation, walking meditation. The form that we use with Muse is focused attention meditation. And in a focused attention meditation, what you're doing is you put your attention on your breath. When your mind wanders away from your breath onto something else, you then notice that your mind's wandered and you come back to your breath. And then your mind eventually wanders again and you say, oh, my mind's wandering. Nope, I was supposed to be on my breath, back to my breath. And that is this incredibly simple process that you're doing. Mind wanders, notice, return. Now, when you do this very simple process, some really fundamental transformations can happen. So most of us go through our life just on autopilot. We just go through our life with thoughts in our head and we assume that those thoughts are supposed to be there. You know, I'm thinking about the garbage now and the argument I had with my partner, and that's what you think about. Well, as soon as you do the focused attention practice and your mind wanders to a standard thought, like taking out the garbage, you say, hold on, I'm not supposed to be thinking about that. I have a choice to take my mind off that thing and put it onto something else. At that moment, you have fundamentally changed the relationship to your own mind. You are now in the position of having the choice about what you're thinking. And so most of the time, the thoughts that are in our head are repetitive, often negative, stressful, frustrating, and often not particularly useful. And in a meditation practice, what you learn is that you can move your mind away from those negative and stressful thoughts and intentionally and regularly put them on something that is meaningful to you. And as you do that over time, you literally change your brain. You can change the physical structure of your brain. And it leads to improvements in your focus because you're not spending time in your distractions. It leads to improvements in interpersonal relationships because you're now able to be present to somebody else. It leads to improvements in things like depression and anxiety because these negative and wandering thoughts cause us stress and depression and anxiety. It also improves your physiology. So when we spend less time in the negative, we actually improve our blood flow, immunity, body's physiological response, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a massive host of benefits that come out of this very simple practice.
Well, and I wonder too, like how many people right now, especially in the midst of this whole global pandemic that we're dealing with, the tendency for our minds to want to drift towards negative future realities that we really don't even know. I was saying the other day to somebody, I said, I think one of the biggest difficulties right now is the best analogy I can think of is that people aren't really afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what's in the dark that they can't see. And I feel like that's kind of how we are as a society right now. We just don't know what's ahead. And that creates a lot of uncertainty, creates a lot of fear. And some fear can be healthy, but it's so easy for us to get fixated on that. If we had some tool sets and some skills in our toolbox, if you will, to go, hey, you know what? That's not something I'm going to think about right now. I'm going to think about these things over here, and that's going to add value and hope to my life versus fear or frustration. Is that kind of the thought process too?
You've totally got it. So in these times when we're living in fear, some of which is warranted and some of which we do not need and we do not need to experience constantly, tools that help you manage your mental state, down-regulate your fear, actually down-regulate the systems in your brain associated with fear, allow you to make much better decisions, live more easily day to day, and have more mental and emotional energy available to actually act appropriately and move forward and solve the problems that need to be solved, or allow you to just enjoy the life that you're living safely inside your home without constant worry about invisible fears.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just huge. So I'm looking at the Muse website right now. So if anybody is curious about checking out this actual product, you can go to choosemuse.com. That's M-U-S-E. And it looks super interesting. I don't know the science behind it at all, obviously, but I'd love for you to tell us, like, how does this product enhance meditation? I'm assuming that's the purpose. And how does it make it better? What are kind of some of the general ideas of how it works and how it might be helpful for someone?
Sure. So Muse is really amazing to help anybody start or enhance your meditation practice. It's a slim little headband. So just like a Fitbit would sit on your wrist and track your heart rate or your steps, the Muse sits on your forehead and it tracks your brain, heart, and breath activity during your meditation. So in the practice that I described, you focus your attention on your breath, your mind wanders, you notice it and you return. It's a very simple process, but it can be quite perplexing because there's nobody sitting inside your head warning you when your mind has wandered and guiding you back to your breath and reminding you what you're supposed to be doing. There's no little coach in your brain telling you how to do it and letting you know you're doing it right. So with Muse, we literally solve that problem. We give you real-time feedback on your mind's activity during your meditation. And the metaphor we use is your mind is like the weather. So when it's thinking, distracted, you actually hear sounds that are stormy. And as you come to quiet, focused attention, it quiets the storm. So Muse is giving you real-time feedback to say, hey, nope, your mind's wandering. It's really stormy now. Let's bring it back to calm. Let's bring it back to calm. And then you're reinforced for remaining in that calm, focused state. So your brain starts to intrinsically learn the state that you want to be in and stay there. So you're getting this real-time feedback during your experience. And then after the fact, you get scores, charts, graphs, data, stuff that actually shows you what your brain was doing and shows you your improvements so that you can see how you're doing session after session. And it gives you the motivation and engagement to continue to build your practice every day.
So it's almost like having a at-home personal trainer for your brain in meditation. That's kind of guiding you down the path. That kind of the idea.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to track the stats and data on it too, because I think, especially when it comes to the brain, there's so much it just seems so crazy that it even works. And so there's so much that I don't know about it. And you think about meditation, you go, is this really working? Am I making improvements? Am I not? Where at the gym, you can go, all right, yeah, last week I was, lifting this much. This week I'm lifting this much. I can see a gradual growth. I can stand on the scale and I can say, all right, I've lost X number of pounds. This seems to be heading in the right direction. The food choices I'm making are working. But I think when it comes to meditation, what it sounds like is this kind of solves those issues that I might be able to see in the other parts of life that I can't see in the meditation world. So you talked about not having experience developing a product. I mean, this is a pretty advanced product. So how did that come about from a creation standpoint where you had this idea of what if we had a tool that did X, Y, or Z? How did you get to actually having a product that worked?
A lot of science and a massive team. So, I mean, there's a lot of science and engineering that has gone into this. Our first product came out 6 years ago. It launched in Best Buy Canada. And so now we've been in market quite a long time. We have hundreds of thousands of users all over the world. And making sure that the science and the scientific validation was right was key to us. So there's been over 200 papers published with Muse. It's now used by, doctors, psychotherapists, life coaches, neuroscientists to do neuroscience research. Mayo Clinic just published a study with Muse using it for breast cancer patients awaiting surgery, demonstrating that it improved quality of life and reduced stress and fatigue in a situation as difficult as the cancer care process. So,
wow.
We needed to really know that this worked and that people loved using it. So one side is the science and the other side is the user experience. So we spent a lot of time with extraordinary artists and user experience designers creating an experience that was going to be beautiful and engaging and help you understand your mind, your heart, your breath, and your body, both from an emotional perspective as well as from real stats where you can see, change and growth.
Well, there has to be, I think we all need some level of accountability or reminders and things like that to keep us on a path, especially if we're trying to develop a new habit of some sort, hopefully positive habit. And I think just looking at the app, screenshots on the website, it looks like it's really easy to use, really well designed. It makes you kind of go, all right, I'm going to kind of check into this and use this to help me along on that path. So I'm a real junkie for, that's a horrible word choice, but I'm a real addict when it comes to technology and using technology to help better life. So I just love what you've put together here in this product. How do you see meditation being a benefit specifically to business owners? Because obviously this podcast is about building a business that lasts. You've done that and you've transitioned into an incredible team. How can a business owner, what are the values and benefits that a business owner would have of developing a consistent, well-done meditation process in their life?
There are lots of them. And there are a lot of very top CEOs of, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that use Muse and swear by it because it has improved their ability to manage their business. So one of the first things you notice is a reduction in your distractions. So you're able to focus. You're not caught up in your thoughts. You're able to focus on what's in front of you. You also, through meditation, learn how to manage and sit with your emotions. And one of the most important pieces for decision making is to make sure that your emotions don't cloud you, that you can hear them and they can guide you, but they are not clouding your decision. So meditation strengthens your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain associated with both attention and decision making. And then meditation allows you to interact more effectively with your team members because you learn how to be focused and present for them, to listen to what they're saying, to be there with them. And you learn how to regulate your own emotions through the process of being with them. And then maybe most importantly, meditation helps with stress. So there's there's a lot of stressful things you can do in the world, and entrepreneurship is high on the list. You're responsible for not just your own business, but so many people's livelihoods. And so having a tool that allows you to de-stress, to calm your mind, to calm your body, to improve your, physiological outcomes and your mental outcomes through simply being calm and present and relaxed is massive. And, those are the benefits that you see throughout your life, not just in your business.
Well, one of the things I always say on this show is I want to give people stories, tips, and ideas to help them build a business without being worn out, stressed out, and ready to quit. And this is not a practice that I have or do on a regular basis, but it's something I've kind of seen. I've played around with a few different apps here or there that kind of play meditation soundtracks or things like that. But I just love the looks of this product. And this is not a commercial. There's no affiliate fees or anything else. I just think it's really interesting. I also just love your entrepreneurial journey from where you were to where you are. I want to transition just a little bit because I always want to get this question in. It's really important to me, but it means something different to everyone. And that is, number one, what does work-life balance mean?
Oh, I can't hear you. All of a sudden, I cannot hear you.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. So I'll let me go back to where I was and then we'll edit it. So I want to transition a little bit to a question that I always love to ask, and it is around the question of work-life balance. I mean, something different to everyone. I don't even really necessarily love the term, but everybody knows what it means. So number one, what does work-life balance mean to you? And number two, how has that changed through different seasons of your life, and how have you been able to find more harmony, if you will, in life as a whole?
Sure. So work-life balance to me means that you are fulfilled in the life outside of work, that you have time for your relationships, and you have time for a sense of self and a sense of enjoying your life. So long as your relationships are solid and you feel like you're enjoying your life, that is a pretty good balance. For me, early on in the business, that meant working on my business 14 hours a day and probably partying with my friends another 6 and not sleeping very much because it really required that level of engagement. And I had the passion for it. My passion for it was so massive and the rewards I was getting were so huge that is where I put my energy. And I didn't have a child at the time. And this set of responsibilities I had was different. When it came to having a child, that's actually when I stepped down as the CEO and I said, no, I need to change my relationship to my work to make a different choice for work-life balance in this season of my life. I don't want to be a mom with a crib in the corner of my office. That doesn't sound like a great idea. And I was fortunate enough that I was in the position where I'd built a business that could allow me to step back from it. And so I made a very different decision for the next season of my life. In this season of my life, at home in the pandemic, work-life balance is around making sure my 3-year-old who's at home with me gets enough support while I continue to fulfill my mission and teach people about their brain. And another incredibly important part of work-life balance that I have now that I didn't have before was sleep. So, when you're young, you think like, oh, sleep doesn't matter. I'll just push. And the new product that we've actually built is a device that helps you sleep because we discovered just how extraordinary the value of, everybody knows how extraordinary the value of sleep is, but when you look at it from the impact in your body, like less than 6 hours of sleep destroys your immune system. It has impacts on your cognitive function, on your decision making. And so now this season of my life, when I think about balance, it has to include a good sleep. And so I use Muse S, the new product that we have, to, it's got guided meditations that help you fall asleep, that help you shut your mind so you're not doing the entrepreneurial thing that we all generally do, which is sit there thinking about your business, thinking about your business, thinking about your business, thinking about your business, and then not being able to sleep, and then ultimately ruining yourself and your ability to make decisions the next day.
That's so good. And I just love the intentional choice to change in certain seasons of life based on where you are. And I think that's the message that I always like entrepreneurs to see and hear, is that at different times it looks different. It was different when I was 22 years old and had no kids, and it's very different now because I have 5 kids. And so
Amazing.
I want to be home for dinner every night. That's part of my personal value set, and not every night, but most nights. And sometimes I'm traveling, not right now, no. And I think that intentional decision to adjust life is so important. And sleep, I could not agree with you more on sleep. I'm a big lover of sleep, not like too much sleep, but I really physically need 7 to 8 hours, absolutely minimum, or else I just am not the best person the next day. It's worth the extra hour, whatever that costs, because I'm so much stronger and so much better the next day. I mean, today I'm doing 3 podcasts plus a news interview plus another speech that I have to do, all on Zoom. And if I didn't get enough sleep last night, there's no way I could have made it to the end of the day. So I just love that perspective of intentional choice over time. As we kind of wrap up here, 2 last questions. One is, as you're kind of speaking into other entrepreneurs' lives, what's kind of one parting tip you would leave with them as it relates to building a business that lasts? And the second is, where can people find you online and find out more about your products?
To build a business that lasts, think about how you're going to do something that's going to make the world better. Because when you do that, people want to come on board your business. We're so used to thinking about businesses that will, satisfy your immediate needs, or, you have a technology in search of a solution, or you just want to make money. But what I discovered is that when you have a business that's oriented to actually solving a real problem the world has that makes the world better, people will bend over backwards to make sure your business succeeds. You'll find amazing amounts of support from all over the place because people want to see the solution come to market because it actually solves something for a greater good. And so any of the financial hiccups you have or the employment hiccups, they ultimately end up smoothed out along the way in a very different way when you're oriented towards something greater.
I love that. So where can we find out more about you or your products online?
And you can find Muse at choosemuse.com. When you go there, you can find access to a set of free guided meditations that we have for COVID and lots of content. And you can find me at Ariel's Musings on Instagram and Ariel.Garten at Twitter.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go check it out some more myself. I thank you so much for bringing your insight and knowledge to the show today. I think it's going to be a real value for those that watch it or listen to it. I appreciate your time, Ariel.
My sincere pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, I hope this video has helped you with some tips and ideas to build a business that lasts. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on the next videos that we roll out. And more importantly, for some awesome free resources, head over to our website at buildingabusinessthatlasts.com. You can get a free copy of my book there where I tell you how I have built an agency that's grown year over year for the last 20 years in a row. So go grab that, buildingabusinessthatlasts.com, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks. We'll see you soon.